Welcome to Cult Favorite, the podcast that does not have a ridiculously giant couch for only two people.
It was quite the couch.
We actually have two different spaces.
There's even a third couch behind that no one can see over there.
You know, privacy and boundaries are important. I'm Miranda Simmons.
And I'm Mike Altman. I'm just like, the couch, the whole situation, that house.
I don't understand why it was an issue, though.
What was an issue?
Why that was even an element that was pulled out to say,
Giant couch.
You know that they're weird because what's up with this couch? What
I think
the hell?
No. It's a telling detail.
Well,
it's a telling detail.
We're talking about Ruby and Jodi, the cult. The cult or a cult? A cult.
A cult. Ruby and Jodi, a cult of sin and influence.
Okay.
Why? So the first thing I said when I heard this was, why isn't it called a cult of sinfluence? Right? Because immediately I'm like, that's what it should be called.
Is that what your question was?
Well, when I just saw the title before I started watching it.
All right.
But then, so I noticed this. There's a part when they're doing the little like clicky thing that they do before they're showing what do they call that thing?
The directors?
The little snap like before they do the shot. Yeah. So on that, it said cult of sinfluence.
Oh,
so at one point, someone made them change the name, is my theory. And they should have stood their ground, whoever wanted to keep it, because that's a better title.
That is so far away from my question about the subtitle. But
in fact, it should have been called The Cult of Sinfluence.
It should not have
The story of Ruby and Jodi. That's a better title.
I think that the title should have used neither cult nor sin in its own
We're trying to sell a show here, Miranda.
That is not what I'm up to.
Well, I know. I'm putting myself. I'm role playing as the producer.
We are recording on a day when a different episode is being released, in whose description I called out the subtitle.
That's right.
Because I was just like, come on, subtitles. I don't know. All of these. That's one of the through lines for these cult documentaries, as far as I'm concerned, is the power of a subtitle and the way that we use rhetoric to describe our projects.
That's the thing that these documentaries and academic work have in common, is the need for a good subtitle.
I don't remember the last time I used a subtitle.
Yeah.
But whatever, that's a rabbit hole. It doesn't matter. I'm trying to get away from subtitles. Who are we? Michael Altman. Do we need to say?
We're two religious studies professors.
There it is.
Trying to understand all these cult documentaries that you can't stop binge watching.
And their titles.
And their titles. And their subtitles. If you want to support the show, follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Cult Favorite Pod. And subscribe to the show. Leave us a rating. Leave comments. Leave a review. These are all things that help other people find our show.
Suggest a different title. Do we need a different title? I don't think so.
Cult
I like
Favorite.
Cult
We
Favorite.
don't have a subtitle. Cult Favorite.
I know we don't.
Podcast about,
I know we don't. Anyway. It's our content warning.
Content warning. So this is a rough one. This documentary. So there'll be discussions of child abuse and child sex abuse as we go forward. This was actually a really rough one.
Because we're talking about Ruby Franke
and Jodi Hildebrand. And yeah, so what did you know?
Zero things.
Nope. Okay.
I mean, I have never been a consumer of a lot of vlogging. I know about the phenomenon, but that was never something that like skewed to the stuff that I saw in passing on the medias.
The only vlog I ever watched like regularly on YouTube was Being the Elite, which was about the Young Bucks, the wrestling tag team.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. My relationship to YouTube, I think, is one that characterizes someone perhaps far older than I am. Maybe I'm like exactly in my lane as like
probably. It's like if you're using YouTube for like home improvement to fix stuff and to find things for class.
I do. No, I don't. I sometimes use it for like how-tos, like if I'm trying to figure out like a knitting instruction or something. I used to use it for that a lot. But a lot of times it's for like, new movie trailers and like old clips from like, mid-century TV shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Just like, ooh, there's
whatever.
whatever.
I use home lots I taught myself how to plaster a ceiling in my house from YouTube. So that kind
For
of
me,
stuff.
it's like here's a clip from a Johnny Cash concert or whatever. Like I don't know.
Yeah, and there's lots. Yeah. Anyways,
So I did not know who Ruby Franke was. I had seen that name before.
Yeah.
And I assume that that's post downfall, though, post arrest, because I had just seen the name. And I knew that there was shady stuff there, but I didn't follow
know.
up.
Yeah.
Nope. How about you?
Well, friend of the show, Hannah Young, had recommended the Hulu doc that came out earlier this year, like in January, I think.
And to every CVS, there is always a Walgreens.
Exactly.
Just around
this is
corner.
the Fire Fest to the fire fraud to the fire, whatever.
Okay.
Yes, but I knew it had something to do with Mormonism and YouTube.
Okay.
I was aware of the world of like Mormon and evangelical like mommy bloggers and how that was like a 20-teens thing that then became a vlogging thing in the 2020s.
Vlogging was 2020s? When did Ruby Frank start? Frankie,
well, it started earlier.
Frankie.
I mean, it started earlier, but like
That's
there was
nutty.
like in the I think I think it was sort of a.
She was kind of a vlogging pioneer, though. She was on the front end.
Yeah. It was sort of late teens
a vlogging
into the 20s.
vanguard, if you will.
Yeah, late teens into the 20s is when you see this shift. But there was a lot of stuff on mommy blogs in like the 2010, like 2008, 2012, 13, 14. That was a thing out there, and a lot of that was Mormon mommy blogs, and then there's also kind of a evangelical mommy blog world.
Where is this in relation to? Could we just like set the social media timeline? If Ruby Franke was vlogging in the early aughts, or mid aughts, when did Mom Talk come on the scene? Like, I'm trying to place as not a TikTok aficionado.
Well, so the YouTube channel started in 2015.
Oh, 2015.
Yeah.
Okay, this is all much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is far. No.
Right. She got married in 2000.
Yes.
And then she had all 6 kids, and then she started the vlog 2015.
And then Mom Talk was 2020, 2021.
Interesting.
Taylor Frankie Paul, our new bachelorette, started that in like 2020-ish, and then the group kind of became a thing in 2022. Got it.
Okay, so this is like the...
But there's a big difference between what Mom Talk's doing.
Oh, totally. Well, we'll get into it because like the what made Ruby Franke compelling was kind of her lack of an aesthetic sheen that we see with the like hair extensions and all of the makeup and the you know.
Do they make a point that she gets more sheen
as she goes forward for sure.
But that's actually that's a case study, a comparative case study worth playing out somewhere. Another situation.
Okay, so what's our synopsis?
Yes. Okay, what gets covered? The story of YouTube family vloggers, the Frankies, their channel 8 Passengers, their rise in popularity, and how it all led to the terrible abuse of the Frankie children by their mother Ruby. And behind all that, the story of Jodi Hildebrandt, a therapist and life coach that worked within LDS society, and her role, her teachings, and the role that her teachings and her connections with an X, played in the destruction of the Frankie family and other LDS families. So it's like very much focused. The Hulu documentary, I have not watched more than part of the first episode, but it's very much about Ruby Franke. And this one is there. Then Jodi's in it, but it's like kind of about the Frankie family. This one really moves between Ruby and Jodi.
You know what I think would be interesting? This is this is to edit out, and this is like a note for like us for later perhaps, but I think it could be interesting to, you know, as we think about cult documentaries, for as many of these have a like companion documentary, to watch them both and to just like talk about them in relation to each other, because I think that the formatting and functioning of the documentary itself is always so much more interesting to me than the group or the person itself. Like that's part of why we started this project in the first place. And I yeah. So I am.
I don't think we should edit this part out because I think it's actually a really good point.
Well, I'm really interested in what you think perhaps changes or doesn't with the inclusion of the Frankie children and the ex-husband in the Hulu documentary.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
but I'm asking you to speculate because you haven't seen it.
No, well, I've seen most of it, and I read a couple interviews with the director because I was curious, like the story behind that one. The same way I was curious about the story behind the Hillsong one, and it's actually so. I think what's interesting is the director of the Hulu show, which is 3 parts. He kind of first reached out to the Frankie family, and it kind of starts from there. Whereas this documentary. Which I think starts starts more from a position of the ex-Mormon talking heads, right?
Yes.
And the comparison got me thinking about, and this is like a larger question we could get at, and that's just like the kind of within the, so we've got the made up genre of the cult documentary that it's like the genre that no one ever says. Within that, there are almost sort of, I don't know if you want to call them styles or subgenres or what, but there's kind of different production approaches that you could kind of isolate as like the model of like Shiny Happy People, which is heavily based around these ex-evangelicals, ex-IBLP people. And that's who's sort of featured. And the people who do talk on it from the Duggar family are all like, it's like the one the one kind of daughter who left versus these that are more like, the ones that are more focused on interactions with the family itself, so like the Hillsong doc we watched, where we get what's his face? I'm saying what's the guy's name? I'm blanking. That pastor who leaves and takes his abs with him, but that whole that whole it's like their family story. There's all this behind the scenes footage, right? So I think like there's almost this kind of like. There's the ex-evangelical model, and then there's like the telling the story of the family involved model. That one always has to have a scapegoat that's not on camera. Like Brian Houston was the scapegoat in Hillsong. Here,
Carl Lentz.
There
it is.
There's Carl Lentz.
I knew it would. Yeah.
So yeah, because the other Hulu doc has like they literally the story I read Kevin Frankie gave the director all of their hard drives with everything they'd filmed.
Oh, interesting.
For that whole period.
Which I wonder how much they paid him for that.
That was not in the article, but yeah.
Anyway.
So what doesn't appear in it is we don't see.
Like there are always layers of editorial filtration between someone who is interviewing and the person being interviewed.
Yeah.
So I choose, if I'm the interviewer, I'm choosing what questions to ask you. And that doesn't necessarily like dictate play, but it certainly influences it because it does frame what it is that we talk about and how we talk about it.
And all of the families that we'll get to that were part of connections or who Jodi kind of affected, none of that appears. It's like about Jodi and what she does.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more people who lived in the Frankie's neighborhood and like friends and acquaintances.
So one of those layers of editorial filtration is, that decision of exactly who to talk to and who not to talk to. Yeah. And those inclusions and exclusions I always think are very interesting to pay attention to, like we've discussed before. And like, when do we call on a scholar and when do we not?
Yes,
when do we call on reporters and when do we not?
This
one has a couple of therapists, ex-Mormon, I don't know if he called himself therapist or a psychologist.
Yeah.
But then there's also someone who is a currently practicing Mormon therapist who deals.
And then there was the two. They had doctors in their names. They were podcasters. It was unclear if they were Mormon or ex-Mormon.
A true crime podcasting couple.
Yeah, anybody. Just because you're a professor, you think you can make a podcast?
But we have one person in this documentary who is an alleged victim of abuse. We have Jodi's niece. We hear from her.
Yes.
And that's the one, right?
That's the one.
We have other victims of abuse, of course. We have a lot of the husbands of, who have their own stories to tell. But anyway.
Okay. No, I think that's right. And I think too, what was to that point, we think about what's not in it. it got me thinking, like, so if you watch the Hillsong doc and you watch the Duggars doc, like Kristen Dumais is sort of all over the place.
Religion scholar.
Yes,
Yep.
this church historian, right? There's not. It was interesting that there's not. I was like, who's the LDS Kristen Dumais? Right? There's not we have a number of documentaries now that float around.
Well, but we have lots of scholars of Mormonism,
right?
Like, so I don't know that they need to be
But there's no one. But like Kristen, because of her
because she's been a public intellectual,
right?
So like,
right. That's my point.
She's
It's like
translated into that.
There are. I know Mormon scholars who write articles and write columns and stuff for newspaper. Who columns and stuff, and and style themselves as wanting to be public intellectuals, but no one ever calls them for these. That's what I think is interesting. Is this Kristen just have a better publicist than these other people?
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. There's no one to fill.
Yeah.
Even Ben Zeller is like the go-to for like
Heaven's Gate
and other similar NRMs. He shows up in places. I don't know. It's just, if you're out there.
NRMs, new religious movements, for those of you who are,
Anyways, 4 episodes. What happens? Okay, a lot. The first.
You can condense this. We're trying to be,
the first episode is really about, I was doing this thing, trying to think of this, like they kind of end up, there's a lot of stories that get started in episode 3 and not finished till episode 4 or something like that. But really, the first episode is about the Frankie family, their quick rise, how they gain an audience, and then by the end, introduces Jodi Hildebrand and her Connections organization. So it starts. There's this video that is. I think I did not realize it because I do not consume the places where this was news. But the video of the youngest Frankie's son, the second youngest child, appearing on this sort of stranger's doorstep is one of those like Ring camera videos.
Yes.
Where he's escaped from Jodi Hildebrand's house, we later find out. So that
duct tape on his ankles, clearly needing help.
So he shows up on this sort of random stranger's porch. And that is the opening footage, and it's come back to again and again. And there's kind of a sense of like trying to, okay, we have this video, now let's explain everything,
how this came to be,
everything happening there. So Ruby starts off as a mommy blogger. We get it's all told. This whole episode is kind of told from the perspective of a variety of like ex-Mormon folks, whether it's these 2 ex-Mormon podcasters or the ex-Mormon psychologists, these various people. But it's all kind of outside observers, newscasters. There's
also a journalist who was a fan of the channel for a while. Anyway.
So they're kind of these videos are all based around this kind of performance of the perfect Mormon family, and they start very kind of like,
it's not perfect.
Well,
is that where you're going? Okay. Well, I don't know. Did they ever try to perform perfect Mormon family though? Like, that's what I'm wondering. I guess it's a question.
I think there's a. I was actually just talking to this with my class about this.
Yeah.
That one way to think about charisma, this was the category we had in front of us, is the performance of authenticity.
Yes.
An authentic performance of authenticity.
Sure.
So it's the performance of like authenticity in a way that doesn't feel like a performance.
Yep.
Even though it is. And I think that I
spent a lot of time looking this like disheveled or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And I think so a lot of that's going on is, yes, it's the idea, like it can't be the perfect family because that's not accessible or relatable. It has to be the family that handles its challenges perfectly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what is going on. And the videos start very kind of like just poorly produced, figuring it out, but they get better and better and better as these things go. And Ruby takes on more and more. Like she's wearing makeup more often. She's everything's kind of better lit. In the other documentary where you get a lot more details about all this, they're like she changed all the light bulbs in the house so that the lighting would be better if they could film whenever they wanted to.
Sure.
And there's this,
which makes perfect sense to me though. Like I don't think that's weird. But
no, if
like,
that's what
that's literally every.
So they don't talk about it. So I will keep sprinkling in details. You know what I mean? The first, but no, they were making $80,000 to $100,000 a month at the peak
Are you serious?
on this YouTube channel.
I can't.
Like the first check they got was for, I think, like $85, and then within at this peak,
I still have no idea. I whatever. I will not betray the depths of my ignorance about how all of this works because I feel it's monopoly money. It comes from like, I don't know, the ethers in the air. Like it doesn't make sense to me, and I don't know that I want to know because I think it'll just make me angry.
It's just advertising.
Anyway.
And anyway, so there's points at which I think the show gets the channel gets very popular in part because of Ruby, but also in part because of her older two kids,
sure,
especially her son, because a lot of the people watching these videos are teenage girls, and she has this attractive quarterback football playing son. The son is actually where things start to get, I think, the beginnings of the problem start, because they're struggling.
His name's Chad.
Yes, his name's Chad. Chad's basically being
he's just a dude. He's a teenage boy.
Dude.
Yeah.
And this is a problem, as yes, teenage dudes are a problem.
Sure.
But Ruby's response for example, there was a video where she talks about taking away his bed and making him sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
This begins to prompt a response from YouTube commenters and others. And it's also where there's a lot of language about humility and honesty and distortion and truth and all of this that starts popping up that I think most viewers did not pick up on, but it tings the ears of those who are aware of Jodi Hildebrandt.
Okay.
The videos get more and more pushback. There's people are calling for an investigation by
Child
Protective Services.
Yeah.
There's like all these petitions online, and this is just based on what's in the videos she's like posting herself.
Yeah, these are the edited ones that she felt like were appropriate to put online.
And the view numbers start to drop, and that would means the money starts to drop. The videos get fewer and fewer, and the final video is actually their youngest child's baptism. And then, as this channel has kind of gone dark, Ruby shows up on Jodi Hildebrandt's Connection Conversations channel, the one with the giant couch.
Also YouTube.
Also on YouTube.
Okay. I just have to. Yes. Okay.
But it's on YouTube, but she also has a website. She has an Instagram.
Okay.
I was digging around. There's the website for Connections now points to a Mexican restaurant in Ohio. They bought the URL, which I thought was genius.
Great.
Whoever did that. So then this raises questions. Again, this is all told from the outside. So it's weird. You don't get the details of what's happening kind of in the Frankie house in this first part.
But there are 6 children, all very close together in age, but also left. Yeah.
The older two, by the time we get to this part where she's the channel's been shuttered.
Yes.
The oldest 2 have moved out, but there's 4 still with Ruby. Kevin's not in the videos anymore. And
have they moved out though because are they that old? Like, I know that they're not, like, obviously there's a big age sprawl because there are 6 of them, but they're all pretty like she started having kids early and often. I don't know that it matters, but like I'm wondering.
Pretty
if they
sure
moved,
at least
like were they 18 and going to college?
Yeah,
kind
I think
of thing?
they were gone. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Just
at
curious.
one point Sherry calls the police and asks them to do.
I haven't seen my sister.
I haven't seen my sister.
Yeah.
I've been heard they're being left at home alone, and so we get this idea. We find out that Ruby and the kids are living in Ivins, Utah, at Jodi's house. So Jodi's connection conversations. We get this explanation about it, which it sounds very Nexium-ish in some ways.
How so?
It's a self-helpy thing. It's focused on, a lot of it gets focused on marriages and parenting. A lot of it gets focused on how to fix your relationships. The difference being, well, maybe it's not that different, but a lot of it we find out is put on the husbands in the relationship and sort of their quote unquote addictions. Addiction becomes this word for kind of anything that according to Jodi, everyone has some sorts of addictions.
Yeah, the wives too.
Like I'm addicted to yelling at my kids, or you're addicted. And it's a thing you almost can't ever actually get rid of. And the only way to deal with it is through these connections, which is sort of multiple phone calls a day to people in this group. And then when you don't make those phone calls, there's sort of
like accountability phone calls.
Accountability phone calls, the shame of not having made the phone calls. And so this is sort of where we get, this all sort of circles back, and we end the episode back in that same video of the son on the stranger's porch, and the idea that the kids were living and Ruby were living with Jodi. The second episode is really the first half of it is just a kind of moment by moment retelling of what happened after that kid shows up, after that son shows up on the porch. Like the police get called, we hear from the prosecutor who narrates a lot of this, and it's sort of, we find the search of Jodi's house and all this evidence they find on the initial search. And it culminates with the one reporter you're talking about who says, when I left this family on YouTube, they were intact and happy. Where is Kevin and what has happened? And that leads to the second half of the episode that is really about stories from, I guess it's 3 husbands whose wives and families got involved in connections, and sort of how it destroyed their marriages. And all 3 of them are divorced now.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is about the way Jodi uses shame around sex, porn, and masturbation to sort of demonize the husbands and separate them from their wives. This is how it is told by the husbands. Right. We hear a lot about her idea that sort of pain is necessary for growth. That pain is good. That's not
an oldie but a goodie. We've heard that one before.
That's the more Nexium-ish kind of stuff.
I mean, it's so many of the things.
Yes,
though, right?
Yeah. I think that was what was in my head. And then the main story, that's sort of the example of sort of Jodi's destruction is Adam, who we find out was sexually abused as a child, and the Boy Scouts told his church. The bishop said didn't want to do anything about it. The family said no, and the parents sued the Boy Scouts of America.
It presented it as if that was like really one of the things that kind of opened the floodgates to more stories about the Boy Scouts coming out.
I think so.
They didn't really go into that in detail, but
yes, and so we get.
But Adam is one of these husbands.
Adam is one of these husbands. Okay. That's one of the stories that starts here but comes back later.
Yeah.
And by the end of the episode, we're hearing about Jodi having moved. We're kind of go back in time again, and we're hearing about how Jodi had moved into the Frankie's house. So we kind of hear all these stories. There's 3 husbands. So Adam's wife was very tied up with she comes from a higher up, socially high up LDS family. They don't say more than that. And the other 2, there's 2 other husbands in the thing. We hear a lot of their stories, but then we kind of see how this plays out in the Frankie family by the story of Jodi moving into the Frankie's house, and then how she claimed to see demons and other supernatural figures that haunted her. There's a clip which is I can't remember if it's from the police interview or from the other documentary, because they clipped some of that audio about like Kevin being like, I'm a rational engineering professor and I can't explain what's happening here.
Yeah.
Episode 3, and this is sort of the mode, I think, of the documentary series, is they find one story and use it as the example to then tell what's happening in the Frankie family story. So this case, it's Jodi's niece, Jessie, who talks about her story of Jodi's history of abuse and her abusive form of so-called therapy. So Jessie grows up a queer kid in a conservative Mormon family, is eventually left with Jodi as a teenager.
Because her parents couldn't deal.
Like her parents just abandoned her while she's asleep in the basement because she wouldn't wash the dishes. So she describes all the different levels of physical abuse she experienced from Jodi, how she eventually ran away. And it becomes a kind of example of what they even ask her at one point, like, did you feel like Jodi was working on Connections dogma when you were with her? And she just kind of says, like, I was the test case. I was the kind of test case for this whole idea. And then we hear more about the connections and Jodi's power over the women involved. And we kind of see Adam finishes his story by talking about, he finally files for divorce with his wife, and his wife's lawyer tries to use a psych evaluation that was done on him as part of the Boy Scouts lawsuit, and tries to bring it to court. The judge won't allow it for very obvious reasons.
Sure.
It's not permissible, and instead the wife or the wife's lawyers or somebody gives it to BYU, where Adam was going to school, and it gets spread throughout the LDS church. And
that's what gets ultimately Jodi not that's what gets her license revoked suspended for
months.
Yes, because it was about sharing confidential information.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of dates in Adam's story, I think for privacy reasons, but we know that it was 2012 when that happened, when her license was suspended, because there's a bunch of disclaimers that happen.
This was all happening. If we're placing this on the timeline, then like this is all, she is very much steeped in these activities before, like, because the Frankie channel starts, you said, in 2015, right?
And Jesse says she's 30 at the end of the documentary. So if she was 15 years ago when she's a teenager-ish, so like that's this is where we get, I think, the interesting part at the end of episode 3, where a director is asking people that they're interviewing, is Jodi Hildebrand a cult leader?
Yeah. Because we should say, like, if it's not explicit enough or implicit enough, like, Jodi Hildebrand is someone that members of the LDS see as someone who can help with their relationships and their parenting styles. Yeah. This is someone who is already kind of established in that domain as a life coach and a therapist. And it is because Ruby is starting to feel this difficulty as her kids become teenagers. She doesn't quite know how to discipline them or create boundaries that make sense in a structure that has all of this chaos. And so she is recommended to go see Jodi. Like, that's how that relationship begins.
There's the number of times people in the show, in this documentary, are like, and then our bishop recommended we go see Jodi.
Right.
And it's interesting because the church's position, and there's a little disclaimer from the LDS Church, is that they have no association with Jodi Hildebrand, and they have stopped recommending her since her license was suspended in 2012.
Sure.
But obviously, and part of this is about the kind of makeup of the church, and the role that bishops play is not really full-fledged, like they're lay clergy in a way, that they get a lot of independence to do stuff like just be like, well, yeah, I know, but yeah, you should go see Jodi. And so, yeah. Then the final episode really is about sort of, since there are that day, or the days immediately after this, they find the son, and then there's the search, and then they get the daughter, sort of the fallout from that all the way through the court case. And we get a lot from the prosecutor about everything that was happening to the kids, and the abuse they suffered. And a lot of this, the big piece is that they have Ruby's journal that documents all of the abusive discipline she used, and we even get screenshots of different parts of it. And the prosecutor's narration is sort of interspersed with these videos from Jodi and Ruby talking about sort of discipline and stuff. So the prosecutor's talking about leaving these kids out in the heat, and then there's a video of like Jodi holding up this melted candy, like how hot it is. And they also introduce a book that I'm curious to find. I want to learn more about. I filed this away into things Mike wants to figure out more about. The Vision of Glory, a Mormon apocalyptic book about the end times and spiritual warfare that is characterized as like a Mormon bestseller. I'm like, is this the like late great planet Earth for Mormons?
Right.
But it's a very, I think what's interesting about it is it's about a kind of final battle in which sort of evil has to be like physically killed. So there's a lot of, I want to know more.
As ever, these people and the doctrines or ideologies to which they ascribe are never in a vacuum.
No.
There's a whole, like Jodi didn't just arrive with ideas about hurting kids. Like
No,
These
not
are
at all.
always,
Not at all.
Like, I don't know that Vision of Glory talks about that, but like whenever we isolate a person as a bad actor inside of a structure that we're not going to question.
Yes.
It's
well, also the idea that there aren't a lot of people with apocalyptic approaches to the like, and the ways that like a book like Vision of Glory, there are ways that these things give people cultural tools like language, images, stories to draw on, myths, maybe we say, and how those then get interpreted and used to make sense of what's happening in someone's like individual life or like larger or whatever. Like that's up for fair game. So, yeah. And so we hear more about the visions that Jodi was claiming to have, the apocalyptic prepping. She had 3 basements in her house and a safe room. In lava rock, which is not easy. Like it's not hard. It's not easy to get a basement. This is not the red clay of Alabama. We also hear phone calls from jail from Ruby and Jodi where they don't feel like they've done anything wrong.
Because ultimately they get sentenced to what?
They get sentenced to 4 counts of 1 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Concurrently. Or no, consecutively. Excuse me. Consecutively. So it's up to the parole board in Utah
in like 5 years or something.
I think next year.
Really? Because they will have served.
Yeah, I looked this up earlier. I think it's early next year.
But ultimately, they do both get convicted and sentenced, so they are both. Yeah.
But there's a shift where Ruby suddenly says that she's been brainwashed. Kevin tells the reporter or Kevin's attorney tells the reporter that Kevin was brainwashed.
Yeah.
And then at her sentencing, she gives this tearful kind of apology, thanking everyone for saving her kids.
Yeah.
And then we get the kind of where are they now bit at the end of Sherry Frankie is pushed through anti-family vlogging bill. Kevin's also part of that. Kevin's also advocated for regulating life coaches.
Did the anti-vlogging bill get passed? Like, is it in effect? Or did she just advocate for it?
Didn't look that up. I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
I got a little like boost of like, oh yay, when I saw pushed through.
Yeah,
but,
it was implemented.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
HB 322.
Because like obviously children can't consent to having their images depicted and like moments in their lives be put online.
It doesn't though
prohibit people from doing so.
Right. Like it sets ground rules. So if they have like the parents have to establish a trust for the minor. They have to put a certain percentage of any earnings for the minor.
Yeah. So we don't have a problem with kids being put online against their like will that is not legally formed yet. Instead, it's just we have to make sure that they're compensated for it.
Right. Well,
I
think because
if we're talking about
most people in Utah, if we're thinking about what the role of children are in this particular cultural environment, children they belong to the parents. And so it's more, if you read the bill, it's more.
Oh, I would suggest that that's not exclusively a Mormon
thing
at all.
It's not at all. No. I don't think it's exclusively Mormon at all. But my point is like, it's not a thing about like, it's about the proper use of children, for lack of a better phrase. Right. And then making sure that it's equitable. Makes me think about Margeau. But
which again, like, anyway, we'll get there. Okay.
Yeah. And then Michael, one of the husbands that was ruined by Jodi, he files a racketeering lawsuit against Ruby, Jodi, and the others at Connection, including one Pam Botcher, who shows up nowhere else really until the very end. And they're like, Pam Botcher was never charged. She's ominously there. The other 2 kids that weren't at Jodi's house.
She's one of the facilitators. Yeah.
She's one of the Connections people. And the last thing we hear is a call from Jodi that she has a story to tell when she gets out of prison and that she hasn't done anything wrong.
Right. Because back to that question that gets asked, I forget when you said, like at the end of one of the episodes of like introducing the prospect of Jodi as cult leader.
Yeah.
In that formation, Ruby is a brainwashed member of the Connections cult.
Yeah.
and Jodi is stocked up as cult leader.
Yeah.
Sure. So I have several things.
What do you want to talk about, Miranda?
Mike, I mean, I feel like the fact that as ever, my I am given pause when there are individuals stacked up in some kind of way, removed from the contexts and the fires in which they were forged, you know? Because the fact that she got married at 18 and she had 6 children.
Yeah.
Okay. Inside of a space where that is seen as totally chill and normal. So the fact that Ruby's videos were so compelling just because she admitted that parenting is hard.
Yeah.
Tells you a little bit about what we identify as normal and easy to accept or swallow in relation to parenting narratives. That like it's we still consume parenting images of the shiny, happy, glossy.
Right.
We still love that.
Yeah.
And then but then we also keep space to praise those who are like, I don't know, man, I'm having a rough day.
Yeah.
And so either way, we are not questioning what are the zillion dynamics or factors involved with someone so young.
Yeah.
Having that many children.
Yeah.
Without tools, resources, structural support to speak of that we know about.
Right.
But as consumers of this projection, we have no access to those things. And so discursively speaking, she has no access to those things. Like whether that is or is not true, that is not part of the story that she's telling. She's just talking about, here's who I am and how I feel on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So like inside of that context, of course, she's going to look for resources and structural support. Of course, vlogging at the time seemed like a way to not feel alone. And of course, it would feel to someone in that domain really seductive and really validating when you see the actual number of followers tick up.
Oh, yeah.
That scene when she's in the car and she misses the moment when it clicks over to 1 million followers and she starts crying because she missed it, is presented as this lady is crazy. Like, she's such a drama queen. She's got a kid in the back seat, for God's sake. Like, why is she...
See, I
you didn't read it that way?
I read it as incredibly, like, poignant. Like, I read it as, like,
That's good.
I read it with a lot more, like,
I did too. I just didn't think that was the production choice. I felt like I don't know. I don't know how it was.
I think maybe...
I don't know how it landed to her followers, for example, because that's what she was... You know what I mean? Like there's a meta kind of like, there are so many layers of proximity and relation between like, I am watching a person filming the thing that I'm going to be watching. Like it's this kind of weird cybernetic feedback loop.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I felt like a lot of the moments of her online, it was kind of, the line started getting very blurry between the things that made her compelling to folks and the things that made folks call her out for bad behavior.
I think that the calling out for bad behavior is part of what makes her compelling.
But we don't...
Like, that's the point. Like,
yes, 100%. And what is not called out, behaviorally speaking, is whatever forces like converge such that someone can get married at 18 and immediately having all of those kids and putting it online. Like,
right. No, and
people get to do what they want, obviously,
obviously,
like ages of consent, et cetera, et cetera. But that is not like her frontal like lobe is not fully developed. Like I'm not, and so while I would never presume to armchair psychoanalyze what kinds of choices are being made where and whether they're good or not, like that's none of my business. But how she treated her children was not a foregone conclusion.
No. And we
we
saw this with the Duggars too, where it was like,
which is also not to say that you are necessarily going to treat your kids that way if you have 25 kids. Like that's not true either, right? Like I do not want to be mistaken for suggesting like it is a spectrum, obviously. People can be terrible to only children, like etc. It's just that we think somehow where she ended up is completely disconnected from where she started. Well, where she started is seen as this beautiful little like kind of fairy story with the pretty dress and the cool husband and the...
I think there's a disconnect between where she started and what people thought of her in 17, right? When it was, I don't know when it actually hit that peak of 1 million and all that. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a disconnect between what Ruby Franke was as this kind of like mommy vlogger with this handsome son and beautiful daughter and all these things they're doing together, etc. And how that's being represented in the documentary. The
documentary can't, for good reason, they can't even use the faces or names of the younger children,
right?
For protection of privacy concerns,
right?
Like,
but my point is like I think it's presented in 2018. I think we're in I think that there's a current representation in the zeitgeist about Mormon women and Mormon families that I think that the LDS Church is very aware of and frustrated by. That the combination of these events, there's the 2 documentaries. There's Sherry Franke has her own book she published at the beginning of this year. Mm-hmm. The daughter. There was a 2024 Lifetime movie, Mormon Mom Gone Wrong, the Ruby Franke story that had Heather Locklear as Jodi Hildenbrand.
I can't see. It's that very rhetorical construction of Mormon Mom Gone Wrong. Right. That like we are implicitly suggesting that the framework called Mormon Mom is something that we want to maintain,
right,
and that comes with all these preconceptions and that it looks a certain way. And I think that's messed up.
I think all of this, and then the success in terms of ratings and viewers, the cultural success of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and the fact that showed does not actually show. It shows people struggling to maintain a particular kind of Mormon femininity in these certain ways we talked about.
Do we see them struggle? I don't know that we see them struggle.
I think I think it comes off as very...
You do?
Yeah, I mean...
this is a different conversation.
But I think when Taylor Frankie Paul was nominated became the Bachelor...
Yeah. And people had a problem with it.
The response was all immediately about her domestic violence, which was the plot that starts the whole series.
Yeah.
Right?
I just don't think that we delved at all in any kind of way with care or concern for that domestic violence. It was presented as a drama element that they just brought up and moved past.
Point is, the show Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is not a show that's reflecting a Mormon motherhood of the 2017 Ruby Franke on YouTube.
Agreed, because they're all like...
Right.
Yeah, rich and highly produced.
Right.
Ruby Franke didn't have an agent.
You can be blessed and highly favored, or you can be rich and highly produced. But what I'm getting at is like I think that there is now a representation of Mormon femininity in popular culture and in non-Mormon circles, and definitely in ex-Mormon circles, that really is sort of calling the bluff of the shiny, happy Mormon motherhood of the right?
Yeah.
And so I think that like part of what the documentary is doing, I thought the documentary did a okay job, or as much of a job as it could have done, without without, because you're limited by how far can we go without feeling like we're misrepresenting the people we're interviewing or editorializing too far. But there's my takeaway was there are a bunch of people who got married too young and had too many kids within this community, and they all need marriage help, and they all sent them to this one woman.
Yeah.
And it became this like,
right.
Target rich environment for her.
Right. So
and that's not just a Mormon story. That's a lot of people's stories.
Yes.
Which I think is why I keep putting it in sort of the shiny happy people Hillsong because it rings. There's so many similar social cultural dynamics. Sure. But I think that statement, like making that abundantly clear, I think is a critique that's stronger than you would normally get. Maybe I was like glad that kind of level.
Yeah.
Of story.
Like the fact, I mean, it's also an ethos though that we see in The Biggest Loser. Like, I don't even think that it's restricted that pain makes you stronger, that the way that you present in the world is reflective of your moral fiber, that like the fact that Secret Lives of Mormon Wives works as like a media product, and we never, like, there's a reason that it's not, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't rhyme, obviously. I don't know what they would title it if it were Mormon Moms, but they are more, it's about their romantic stuff. We do not have to actually see them doing a lot of parenting. Kids, and part of that is because of privacy stuff. Right. But part of it is also because I don't know. The fact that, okay, so Jodi's niece telling her story, I think, spoke to some of this, but it's referenced obviously in the documentary. She gets to tell her story, but it is not picked up as a thread that gets really pulled. Namely, like, what made her appear out of control to her parents in the first place as being so remarkably skewed or just specific to that context, that like the need for 100% absolute control by the grown-ups in her life is its own thing to ask questions about. So that, but that's somehow not the thing we have a problem with. The problem is this person, which is another production choice that I don't love, because because I hear you, there is all of the, like, there is this kind of implicit, here is a religious doctrine that frames yada, yada, yada. But after anybody says anything about Jodi or Ruby being like some kind of abuser, it cuts to a picture of Jodi smiling with dissonant music playing. Right. And like, fine, except in a different context.
If you're just
that picture
to audio,
is just a
that
picture.
Yeah.
So it's like you stack up and you reify this image of egregious bad actor inside of a structure that we are not asking a ton of questions about. And I don't know. I get it. Because like there was also in that system. Okay, so here's an example. So maybe there are because yes, there are the like ex-Mormon folk, and even the, like, you know, person who is still part of the Mormon church who is a therapist. Like, they will kind of talk about doctrine that people can, you know, that idea of like, here is religion, here's how it gets misconstrued or, you know, abused and whatever, which again implicitly takes for granted that the thing itself is totally chill and harmless, but that the misconstrual is the problem, right? However, and yet, there is so much not so crypto homophobia
Yes.
that people use unironically to explain Jodi's sadism.
Yes.
And the problem is a structure that would see someone feeling the need to exercise her sexuality like a demon and take it out on other people. Like, that is the problem.
Yeah.
But instead, it's, well, I mean, she was probably kind of a lesbian, but she just didn't know how to deal with it. And it's like, why didn't she know how to deal with it, everybody? That didn't come in, like, that didn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
What was the thing that made her feel like that was a...
I mean,
which is not to excuse.
We do get like very unabashed.
They were sitting kind of close to each other on the couch.
Well, no, we do.
And then you get this cutaway where she's like touching her leg.
Right.
Like, oh
but they do give whatever clip of like the white dude, Mormon leader guy being like, you know, homosexuality is evil, blah, blah. Like you get that clear statement from church. Like,
yes,
they make that very clear. Like,
they do.
This is a homophobic church.
They do.
Here you go. Now,
but then why are we participating in the way that we do with the very thin veneer, like very thinly veiled, in my opinion, homophobia in our explanation of Jodi's many sins? Why is sin in the title at all? Like, we can talk about cult, obviously.
Yeah.
But sin is a pretty suggestive term. And so, like, the sins are the abuses, sure. And yet also,
sin
though...
is the... She doesn't use the word sin, though. Like, the word, like, the distortion...
The producer does, the director does, whoever titled the documentary does, right?
Yes. But I think they're trying to get, like... I think they're trying to point at the role that shame plays in Jodi being able to amass power over people.
Yes.
Like, that's what the sin is. The sin is that she tells... Like, it is kind of the, like...
Well, and she internalizes
it is original sin on a, like, everyone has an addiction.
Totally.
You will always have an addiction. There's no way to get out of it. Right? Like,
totally shames that guy for being gay. Except that when that is being described, it's not he's gay. It's he has homosexual tendencies or something like that. I don't remember what the euphemism was called.
Yeah.
By the guy who's standing up for him.
Well, because the guy who's standing up for him doesn't know how to talk to gay. Like, probably has no gay friend, gay friend. Like that guy. Like, this is the thing too. Is like, okay, this is what I got me thinking of. You have the same...
But the producer gets to make choices that frame that guy's... you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah, I get that.
I don't know.
I don't know how you framed that, because you want that story in there. Because that's the story where he says this is a cult of Jodi. Like, that's the culmination of that story, right? It's like, he tells them all this is a cult for Jodi.
Sure.
I guess it's like, I found it interesting and useful that there was this story of a sort of social formation or a culture, a society that puts all this pressure on people to get married young and have lots of kids, et cetera, et cetera. And then the underside of that is everyone's having to look for counseling and marriage counseling and parents counseling and therapy because of it.
Yes.
And this is what makes the right? Because this, like... Yes. The same thing happens, like I said, the same thing happens in evangelical culture, and then you have like annual marriage conferences, and you're like,
sure.
If this is such a great path for people to have, you know, fruitful relationships, why do you have to have a event every year for all the ones that are broken?
I would never presume. People should follow their path and get married after they're of legal consenting age, and all, like, follow your bliss, everybody. I say kudos to her daughter, Ruby Frankie's daughter. This came up at the very end for 2 minutes. I say kudos to her daughter for focusing on the abuses of vlogging about kids who cannot consent. Because I feel like it's easy for us to retroactively, about a host of issues, say like, ew, gross, total violation of privacy or whatever. But like, that's not going to, in this example of vlogging, stop us from creating and following influencers. That phenomenon isn't going anywhere. So the structural apparatus changes 0%. And we keep that as it is and feel like our job is done by just identifying bad actors or extreme versions of the thing. The thing is fine. It's the abuse of the thing. It's the misconstrual of the thing.
The thing is influencing?
The thing is influencing. The thing is vlogging with people who can't consent. Because again, we don't change that law.
Right.
We don't have a law that says nobody online who's underage. How about that? Just none. Like, because they're not able to agree. So if they're not able to agree to things happening in relationship to them, let's just take that offline. Let's just make that a non-issue. But we don't want to do that because kids are adorable. They're so cute. And it's so handy to know how to make exactly this kind of, banana bread that will be cool in their lunch or whatever. And it's a way for moms to find community. Like that all makes infinite sense to me. Yeah. It makes so much sense to me.
That was the interesting. But
we want to keep that structure as it is, identifying bad actors. And I feel like that's unhelpful and irritating because what it takes away is any focus on those kinds of parasocial relationships that make us feel some kind of connected to.
But so do you think, how do you balance, if we're thinking about the structural issues here, I put way more weight on the LDS church than I do influencers as the structure. I wouldn't say that single source blame is useful in the first place. Well, I'm not saying
I would say that there
blame.
Is I just don't know that because you're not going to legislate people out of having cultural norms. So like whatever.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And I would never suggest that those are good or bad. What I'm saying is simply that there is a, Venn diagram, something that's getting triangulated, but there are multiple forces that created the phenomenon of Ruby Franke as we have come to know her.
Yeah.
One of them is the LDS Church.
Yeah.
One of them is the cybernetic phenomenon of vlogging and the parasocial dynamics that it creates. One of them is what it means to be a young mom of 6 with a working husband and no structural resources or apparatus to help.
Right.
One of them is I don't know. How many are there? There are 13.
Yeah.
I don't know that any of those in isolation is like a thing to hold up as like, this is the real evil or this is the blah.
I guess I'm not looking for the real evil or even the real thing that could be redressed in some sort of like legislation. I guess I'm just thinking about I'm just looking for an explanation, I guess. And how to measure. And I think you're right. There's multiple factors.
And I just think that I think that identifying cult leader or cult follower, either of those categories, I think removes a person from any of those dynamics
Agreed.
in a like meaningful way.
No, I think that's right.
You know what I mean? Because we can offer a lot of explanations and we can say this is where they come from and yada yada, and Jodi was a victim of abuse herself, and a lot of these documentaries touch on that, but what they are not touching on in many cases is what these are Ruby Franke is a byproduct of a thing, is a symptom of a thing.
Oh yeah,
is not the thing.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I guess I think that's right. And I think I think that I thought the documentary was harder on the LDS Church than I expected going into it, and certainly harder than what I saw in the Hulu one. But I haven't watched the whole thing. But
I would also have critiques, many in fact, of something that just kind of is hard on a church.
Oh, for
because
sure.
You know what I mean? It's as opposed to what? There's not, that's the choice that some people make. All right, cool.
Yeah.
It's about what kinds of social and societal norms and structures are at play that keep these things as fascinating influencer figures in the first place. Like, why do we find a mom having a day online?
That's
interesting.
There's a huge audience. Yeah.
That is a way more complicated question than just.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway?
I don't know. Because I have a takeaway here, and then you put your takeaway.
Well, let's talk about it. That's what we're here for.
Okay, so the background to my takeaway is there was a time when I was trying to do a bunch of stuff on what we now call what a lot of people call evangelicalism, and I was like, what counts as evangelicalism was a big question for a number of scholars of religion in America who often happen to be evangelical themselves. And one of the theories that I was like kicking around is like, what if at bottom the thing we call evangelicalism is really just about it's just mechanisms for controlling gender, sex, reproduction. Like it's not the famous there's a famous Bebington quadrangle about it's about biblical focus on the cross and like this whole thing. And I was like, what if it's not theological? What if it's purely about social, so that was in the back of my head watching this and being like what if this whole thing, for whatever else, what if everything else that comes out of it that might make someone feel good or not is really just kind of,
what's the antecedent to that pronoun? What's it?
Oh,
religion?
Whatever this group, this social formation that we could say the LDS Church, we could say whatever. Okay. But whatever this religious group, this social formation is, people may talk about the beliefs, they may talk about the meaning it gives them, they may talk about this community it provides, but what if that is all just superfluous or exhaust from a machine that is actually built around controlling gender, sex, reproduction? And you're like, duh.
Well, that is not what I said.
Basically.
But I guess yes, they are machines. Yes. For controlling all sorts of stuff. Meanwhile, we also are always using a bazillion mechanisms for controlling gender, sex, and reproduction. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that it's an important question. I share the cognitive quest for clarity. I think it's why I love documentaries in the first place. It's one of the reasons. It's not the only reason. Because I just, learning is fun. I'm curious about all sorts of stuff and hear people who will explain things to me. And I love it. I love it. But I don't know that helps us, identifying those things, right, in that quadrangle or whatever. Yeah. I don't know that helps us understand what religion is so much as it helps us think about what we are up to when we call something religion as opposed to something else. Because there are all of these all of these mechanisms.
Religion's in scare quotes in my notes.
Yeah. No, 100%. But I guess for me it's the I don't have ever a good sense, and I don't know that I want one of what it really is. I think for me, it's some things that we call religion function that way.
Yes, that's all I was saying.
Other things that we call religions function in a completely different way.
100%.
Also, some things that we don't call religion function in the very same way that first thing that we called religion function. And so, so identifying those explanatory schema or characteristics or whatever, I think potentially helps us be a little bit more aware and then hopefully careful about how it is that our labels, what kind of work those are doing for us.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think what I find why that was enough of a thing in my head to be a takeaway is partially in that the discussion about this thing called evangelicalism or this thing called Mormonism is so...
This crazy little thing called love.
It's so... in the circles that I run in academically or have run in, it is so often assumed to be about particular structures of belief or particular beliefs, particular texts, right? Sure. And so to say, no.
These internal things.
It's not about that. It's actually doing this. And again, I'm not saying that's all it's doing.
Yeah.
But and half the time stuff like this, I'm using, it's a provocative thought experiment of like, what if instead of thinking it was about this whole story of this particular set of beliefs that it was actually about this.
Sure.
What does that then reframe? To me, that is because in the documentary you can go. One of the things the documentary did, I think, is you get the story of all of these families and marriages that have been destroyed by this thing, blah blah blah. You get the idea. I don't know how many people in the audience pick up on which, but the idea that you have all these people with these early, they get married young, et cetera, these problems, they have to go to therapy. But then you also have like the visions, the eternal merit, like all of the beliefy stuff. Yeah. And you're kind of opened. You can kind of choose either path as a viewer of which one you want to put the weight on. Is it the weird theology or is it the kind of functionalism of the...
And I guess as a viewer and just a person in the world, I don't want to have to choose. I feel like there is no question to me that, and I guess it just doesn't even matter to me. Like it is very possible. I would say even probable, but also it's none of my business that Ruby Franke really sincerely believe. Like we also want to classify that. Like is somebody really being authentic or sincere when are they like, basically, are they doing something in good faith?
Yeah.
And maybe she was duct taping her children in good faith. Like,
I don't doubt that.
And that can be true. And what is informing her ability to do that in good faith is functioning as a mechanism for controlling sex, gender, blah, blah, blah. So like both of those things can be concurrently true, I would suggest.
I just think it's funny because...
This is why theorists are no fun at parties.
No, it's why they are. But it's like, it's like
nobody wants to watch movies with me.
Things that like, okay, this is my quick example of this. Is like, I was on a panel one time talking about a book about politics and religion in colonial America, and the book made a great way of saying that like the things we label religion and politics were not labeled as such, and in fact, political identities and quote unquote religious identities, like in Virginia, were, they were all mixed up and not as clear. And so I was like on this panel praising this book and talking about how like I love the way this book makes it clear that this idea of religion and politics is like the idea that they're somehow separate or that these two things that interact is such a myth, and this is great evidence of a particular moment. And so I spend 15 to 20 minutes talking about this. Now, granted, the other people on the panel did not take this tack with the book. But then at the end of the thing, I'm at a very particular kind of conference, not one you would ever be at. This is why. At the end of the thing, someone raises their hand in the back and says, so it sounds like you're saying that there's no difference between religion and politics. Right? So to say that evangelicalism or the LDS Church is actually in part a mechanism for controlling gender and sex and reproduction would zoom right over everyone's head in that room.
Sure.
Now, I don't go to those rooms anymore.
Okay.
But those rooms exist.
Yeah, of course.
And so
of course. I think as viewers of documentaries, we want absolutely. It's why all of these rhetorical devices work in the framing of these people as cult leaders. And yet we don't have a genre called cult documentary, technically. Like, how is that possible? It's just, I think that if we have a role as like scholars who are investigating these pop cultural moments, it's to... Instead of like explaining how religion works to warp people's brains or how it works to save people from themselves and rectify social ills or like whatever, I think, at least as I see it, for me, what feels much more responsible is like identifying the moments when we are using certain terms to explain or qualify or, I don't know.
Yeah.
That in other contexts we would use very differently or why we feel like we have to justify or qualify one thing when we feel like we can kind of like fly right over it somewhere else or like, and I think that these so-called cult documentaries are just such low-hanging fruit for those moments.
Yes.
When we do that kind of rhetorical tap dancing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know.
What's your cult favorite?
Okay, so this is a preview of coming reading attractions. So I cannot as yet recommend it, but I am excited about it. So that's why I'm going to call it a cult favorite. A dear friend of mine recommended the book Paul Eli's This Last Supper, Art, Faith, Sex, and Controversy in the 1980s. And in it, it's like a examination of these various like pop cultural moments in the 80s when like artists and musicians court controversy in relation to religion and what and kind of placing those artistic and pop cultural moments inside of their larger context. So
I could have used this semester.
I'm very excited about it. It's really, I mean, it's long. It's a big book. And so I am just now cracking it open with the promise to talk to my friend about it in real time in a couple months. But I'm stoked about it.
This looks really good, actually.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the book page now.
Because the 80s, like whatever, it's where a lot of rhetoric, rightly or wrongly, is given to the concept of post-secularism, that we're like in, religion is in decline, rightly or wrongly. Again, like I have critiques of those kinds of language, but that doesn't matter. It's that moment in the world, civically, politically, economically, and also we've got artists and musicians like Madonna and Sinead O'Connor and
this actually would be, I need to look, this actually
reckoning with their faith in different ways.
This could be really useful for
or their religious upbringings or whatever.
For the wrestling book as well. Because this is the same period that Hulk Hogan's wearing his giant crucifix.
Great.
And you have
totally
Brother Love, the televangelist gimmick.
Interesting, because like these examples that I think are being brought up in the book, because like in that case, these are people who are sporting religious iconography in certain ways. What I think he's getting at is like, the so-called sacrilege in Madonna's Like a Prayer video.
Right.
Or Sinead O'Connor's ripping up that photo of the Pope on Saturday Night Live. Where they're kind of like, anyway. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm stoked. What's yours?
Mine is, the Bread and Puppet, which is...
I like both of those things. I like bread and puppets.
they're actually... I found out about this because they're coming to Tuscaloosa next weekend.
I know what this is. I've heard about this.
They're staying at my house, at my back house. Some of them are staying in our back house because I know the buddy of mine is the one organizing it.
Okay.
But Bread and Puppet, they go all the way back to the 60s of a kind of... The Bread and Puppet Theater was founded in 1963 by Peter Schumann on New York's Lower East Side. I'm reading off their 40 page, but they do basically street theater performances. The one that they're they're on tour with right now that's stopping here is called the Our Domestic Resurrection Revolution in Progress Circus.
So many syllables.
I know.
I love it.
Needs a subtitle. But it is a form of like political street theater with puppets.
Cool.
And they have a free workshop they do. It's a Friday night show, but they have a free workshop on Thursday afternoon where you can go and learn how to do the puppets with them and then be in the part of the show on Friday.
Nice. I'm sad I'm going to miss it because I'm at a conference, but I'm going to recommend it to people.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be in Tuscaloosa.
I'll spread the word.
But they're traveling.
But look them up anyway.
They're traveling throughout the country. But they're staying in my back house. I was asked.
You've said. Are you friends with them?
I do not know these people. The buddy
I bet
of mine,
that they'll sign a T-shirt for you.
Right. The buddy of mine who's organizing this and asked because he lives around the corner and they're staying. Most of them are staying at his house. He was like, "Hey," he addressed me, but he's like, Also, they want to know if it's okay to have a tent or hammock in your yard.
Sure.
And I'm like, sure. Bring it
Maybe
all.
they'll do some LARPing.
There's a bus involved. I'm excited to see what the bus looks like.
Ooh, I hope it's like Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem.
That's what I have in my head. Yeah, that's exactly what I have in my head. So, anyways, you see BrendanPuppet.org. Check it out.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But thanks for listening, everybody. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. Leave us comments, ratings. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Cult Favorite. Special thanks to the Department of Religious Studies at the University of Alabama for production assistance. And we'll
see you next time.
I think we have a special treat maybe for Halloween coming up.
Yeah, unless this one comes out after that one.
Oh,
so,
we may have had a special treat for Halloween. I don't know.
In which case, looking forward or you're welcome.
That's right. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Bye.